Marjorie Taylor Greene weighed in on George Santos's appearance on Fox News on Tucker Carlson tonight, but where Tulsi Gabbard was filling in for Tucker Carlson. And as I said, Tulsi Gabbard's not somebody I particularly admire. She has done some things I've seen as very dishonest over the last few months. But this interview, she did really, really well. And she pressed him in a great and effective fashion. And it went horribly for George Santos. Now, we went over that already. So if you're watching this on YouTube in a separate segment, the Marjorie Greene segment, I would go watch the George Santos segment before we dive into this. But she responded to this appearance on Fox News by George Santos and was actually upset with Tulsi Gabbard, if you can believe it, and came in to defend George Santos, the liar, the person who made up almost every significant aspect of his past to run for Congress and had to admit to that fact. She thinks he's the one who's the victim in this situation, as does he, and he should be advocated for. Take a look at this Twitter thread from Marjorie Taylor Greene, where she is linking to this interview that Tulsi Gabbard did with George Santos, and said, Tulsi Gabbard, who says she is a former Democrat, gave Representative-elect George Santos zero grace, while George is admitting and apologizing for lying about his resume, just like her former colleagues are giving George zero grace and even demanding he resign. Next part of this tweet thread, Tulsi says that George's actions on the House floor are what is most important, but George has not even had the chance to take action for his district on the House floor because he isn't even sworn in yet. Tulsi also says, how can his district believe anything he says when he is standing on the House floor fighting for them? I too believe actions and words are extremely important, but I don't think a former Democrat whose actions on the House floor as recent as 2020 that gave her an A from Planned Parenthood, an F from the NRA, and introduced a climate agenda signature piece of legislation called the OFF Act, designed to end all fossil fuels, the same as AOC's Green New Deal, should lecture a newly elected Republican member of Congress on how he should vote to represent his Republican district. We'll read two more parts of this, but so far, just completely incoherent. So because Tulsi Gabbard had views that you don't like in the past, and now has completely leaned into a grift of pretending to be right-wing for the purposes of getting on Fox News and all of that, that makes the questions that she was asking about George Santos's lies somehow wrong. No, the questions by themselves, take out who was asking them, were perfect. Pressing him on his dishonesty and not allowing him to wiggle out of it with one kind of vague answer. Absolutely great, but to her, it was too aggressive, and because she used to be a Democrat, she should have no right to ask those questions. Last two parts of this. I do appreciate that Tulsi says words that sound conservative now, even though she can't take action to back them up. I am glad she, like George, realized she made mistakes and was wrong every time she voted to support killing the unborn, taking away our gun rights, and legislated to kill America's energy independence in the fossil fuel industry. I hope Tulsi is sincere, just like I hope George is sincere. I think we Republicans should give George Santos a chance and see how he legislates and votes, not treat him the same as the left is. So if you want to just always take the opposite stance as the left, then in this situation, you should choose to advocate on behalf of the guy who blatantly lied about almost every aspect of his past. And that's what she's doing, because it is her job to just be anti-left on everything. And that's what she's doing there. And it's funny because what I always say with Trump, whenever he'll come out, whenever a recent story is damning against him, or evidence from the January 6th Select Committee or the New York investigation into him or wherever it might be, I say, watch how he responds to it. If he just goes after the person or the entity that is bringing this evidence forward and not the evidence itself, then you know he doesn't have an argument against that evidence. And so that's what we're seeing here from Marjorie Taylor Greene. Instead of arguing that what George Santos did wasn't so bad, or saying the New York Times messed up on the reporting because of this fact and this fact, or saying it's perfectly fine to lie about your past when running for Congress, that she doesn't feel comfortable arguing. So instead, it has to be the person who made clear in this interview that George Santos was so incapable of being properly apologetic and honestly having integrity in this moment and just deciding to resign, that's the person in the wrong. It's Tulsi Gabbard in the wrong in this situation, not George Santos, who again has apologized, but it's wrapped up in I'm still the victim of this situation. Stop asking me so much questions. And what I did wasn't that bad. And I just embellished. I'm not a liar. I'm not a fraud, when he absolutely is those things. And so Marjorie Greene, as always, missed the mark on this defense of George Santos.